Simcha Rothman, great to be with you on CBN News. The law has passed. What's next?
If you ask me what's next, I'm not a prophet. But if you ask me what I want the next step to be, I would say I hope that members from the opposition that openly supported this kind of reform in the past, and other people that care about the state of Israel, care about its economy, care about its security, will come back to their senses, sit and talk like normal people, like it usually happens in this building, and find a wide agreement, and it's very easy to reach it if there is good faith and goodwill. From our side, there is goodwill and good faith. I hope people from the opposition will talk. And then the next step is up to the negotiation. If we reach agreements on certain issues and certain issues need more time, we'll go with what we agreed on. Everyone in Israel understands the problem today. No one in Israel says there is not a problem with the justice system. But the way to change it, and the fact that I also prefer and think it's very important that it will be with wide agreements. But you cannot agree with yourself. You need someone else to agree with. And if the other side just runs away from any agreement, then you cannot give them the veto. But besides giving them veto on legislation, we're willing to talk about everything.
Who are the members of the opposition that actually proposed very similar or the exact legislation that you had proposed and just passed?
So first, Gideon Sa'ar, it was in his website, word by word, the legislation, almost word by word, the idea that the reasonableness clause, which I know that sometimes lost in translation, no one wants the government to act unreasonably. That's not the question. The question is, who is the judge of what's reasonable and what's not? And Israel is the only country that I know of that the decision of who will be in the government, who the minister will be, what kind of policy you will adopt, the court can say it's unreasonable without showing any problem with the law or the process, just doesn't like the outcome, and says, I will decide instead of you. This is what the court in Israel did in the 80s. Until the 80s, the court did not do it. And that needs to be changed. And the idea is, if you want to do it on a low-level official, by all means. But if you want to do it on elected officials, on the government, on the minister, on the prime minister, you're not actually fighting with the government. It's not only a problem of separation of powers. It's a question of democracy. And when the court says it's unreasonable, it basically says, I decide and not the public. And that's not democratic. No other country will take it.
You mentioned Gideon Sa'ar. Any other leaders of the opposition?
So Gideon Sa'ar actually wrote it, speaking about it openly. There are a number of speeches, public speeches, when Yair Lapid said exactly that. He said that the court, using this reasonableness test, actually, and I'm using this as a quote, did a hostile takeover on the government of Israel. That's a speech Yair Lapid gave in 2014, in 2016. This problem, and I'm not even talking about law professors and leaders of the judges and Supreme Court justices and chief justices that criticized the use of this reasonableness test by the court for many, many years. I'm talking political players that are actually on the field today that were criticizing it in a very harsh terms. And now, because we offered it and they're not part of the coalition, they're bad-mouthing the same thing that they voted on and spoke about it before.
And why would they do that?
Because the demonstrations are not really about the reform in the justice system. And the outrage that the coalition, that the opposition members are fostering, it's not about the justice system. It's about the fact that they lost the elections. And they say, we do not accept this fact. And they went out and planned those protests way before we started doing anything. Because they did not, way before the government was formed, this protest machine came into being with budgets and ideas and strategies, just because they did not accept the fact that Netanyahu is the prime minister.
How have you seen the media cover this issue?
I think the media in Israel, and of course it affects the media outside of Israel, is heavily biased. For example, the fact that we spoke about before, that this bill, how many people, ask around the world, how many people know that what we passed here in the Knesset, leave aside if it's smart, if it's a good idea, opinion, fact, it was offered by a member of the opposition and the former Justice Minister Gideon Sa'ar, meaning you cannot say it's extreme or strange or something that acts unilaterally. It was offered in the platform. It was offered by a justice in the Supreme Court, in articles, in rulings. It's putting substance to criticism for 40, that has been in the Israeli discourse for 40 years. It's not a new idea. Everything I'm saying is fact. It's not an opinion. You can think it's a good idea, you can think it's a bad idea. But the facts, it was in the coalition agreement, in the draft coalition agreement in 2019. It's not a new subject that appeared. It was offered in the Knesset by number of Knesset members, again, including members of the opposition, since 2015. If you read the news in Israel or around the world, you would get the impression that this crazy government got into power and decided, out of think lost, to bring something new that no one ever heard of, to solve non-existent problems and enforce their own views on the world. That's a lie. It's not about an opinion. That's a lie. That's not a fact. And the fact that no one knows this is because tremendous amount of money was invested in telling those lies